This is Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, the original entry in the series that has now been given a FPS boost. So with that, I've now covered each entry in, well, this franchise here, this mini and really great franchise. And it's kind of been a blast taking a look at all the old games again because they're really quite delightful. So this one I actually played the most of back in the day because, well, it was early on in the generation and actually just an absolute treasure of a game, and it's amazing that there are still people playing it right now, which is kind of wild. It's a full lobby for even the biggest playlist here, so that's kind of interesting. These guys having like a chat back there, that's funny. So with the FPS boost, this is on by default on Series X, assuming you know you have the 120Hz display, so you actually get 120 FPS by default. So the resolution of the game is 900p, and we do benefit from auto HDR support, which looks quite wonderful with this really interesting cartoon aesthetic and design. So yeah, this game's just a delight. You can do kind of like solo and or cooperative things with you know, sort of the wave survival, or you can jump on and play multiplayer, you know, Vanquish, which is like a deathmatch thing, or large-scale multiplayer action, and I don't remember what it's called, Gardens and Graveyards or something like that. Anyways, you're going and fighting through objectives, and that's kind of the gist of the experience. So this is the original one, so if you play the later ones, the mechanics might not have, you know, fully held up on this one, but I still think it's got such a neat visual art, like aesthetic and style to it, because this is much more cartoony. The later ones tend to go more into the realms of realism, whereas this one completely embraces the cartoon aesthetic of the franchise. And it's really well done, tons of great levels, so many different things to do. Just, it's all multiplayer focused though, right? The heart of this one is the multiplayer element, whereas the later ones do more and more like local stuff. But this one is just so perfectly well done, and it was a genuine shock early on in the generation. I remember seeing this at E3 and just being like, oh, this is a weird-looking game, and then playing it and being like, oh, wow, yeah, they're really onto something with this. Because it's basically like Battlefield for the younger ones, right? That's essentially what it is. As I joke with the other titles, it's kind of indoctrinating the children to get ready for Battlefield when they're older. That's generally the style of this game, and it just works really well. So, you know, we're obviously here to talk about the frame rate of the experience as well, and, you know, with 120 FPS, it's seriously smooth. It feels like a brand new game. I know the resolution might sound rather low, but this one strangely holds up quite well. It's very, like, sort of soft around the edges. Like, I don't see any sort of real jaggedy artifacting and stuff, which is usually something you see when you get to the lower resolutions. It surprisingly looks fairly solid, and I don't know if it was the art direction, like the cartoon look, but this is honestly one of the more surprisingly sharper looking lower resolution games that I've seen, and I think the frame rate also helps a lot in that regard. So keep in mind, YouTube doesn't support 120, I can't record at 120, so you're kind of hopefully seeing the effect of just the smoother visuals. And I know that sounds weird because, you know, resolution hasn't changed, but when you add more frames, you should actually technically have a more fluid picture that you're seeing while I'm playing here, just in regards to more frames within the image and that. It makes quite a difference. And seriously, movement-wise, aiming, a lot snappier, and just kind of going around, you're able to, you know, sort of interact and react with a faster, less delay when you are going around fighting at 120. And this feels like, really, it feels like a fresh game with this bump up in quality. I'm genuinely surprised by it, and I think they've done a wonderful job with this one. Same with the other titles, those ones all feel really good too, but this one, obviously being like the oldest, needed the best kind of cleanup almost, because it is so aged at this point, but no, it's feeling really good and worth a jump in if you haven't played it in a long time, or maybe haven't checked it out at all, just because you can still kind of find lobbies to enjoy, and that's really cool. So the characters, they also have different dynamics to them. Like, there's different classes, and like I said, I played an absolute ton of this. I'm like, rank. Oh, they added other ranks. I have, like, you know, the highest rank. I think I have all the base achievements, but I was missing one or two of the DLC ones, I believe, in this title. So I believe they added some or something, and I never got around to getting those. But yeah, it's kind of just a really cool experience. You can summon creatures. You're fighting on either the plants or the zombie side. They have different classes. And it's just very well done. Like, it's sort of a linear focused multiplayer in terms of what you're doing in this mode. You're just going back and forth through these objectives. But it works really well for the style of play and just what this game provides. It really is just quite a delight. That's the biggest part of it, is, you know, it kind of looks really cool still, and it plays quite well. I think the skies haven't aged beautifully well, but if you kind of just take them as backdrop, they actually make a lot of sense for, well, basically the world. Because like I said, the later games, they embrace more of a mix of, you know, not just this cartoon aesthetic, but they add in more of a natural look to it. So I think that's kind of neat to see the aging style of this title, and just kind of how it's sort of held up and impacted over the years. Obviously, like, the UI and stuff feels a lot more simple. It feels early last gen, which is obviously where it's from. But yeah, it's still a delightful thing to try out and play, just because it was a little bit more simplistic and well set. But there were elements where you kind of change up your characters with some wacky designs, and I think that's gone a little bit further later on as they've, you know, introduced more concepts, added more characters, expanded the scope of the maps. They've definitely done a lot with the series thus far, and hopefully it continues on. I haven't heard necessarily great things if it's going to, whether it's going to continue, but I feel like there's a lot of life in this series if they sort of, you know, push it out to people well, and they do interesting things. And it was very weird how they changed the naming too, because Garden Warfare to me makes a lot more sense than like Battle for Neighborville. But I guess once you get to so many titled franchises, you might find that you know, it gets a bit odd to do like a Garden Warfare. Like Garden Warfare 3 makes more sense to me number-wise than Battle for Neighborville, but there's the whole psychology of adding numbers, kind of keeping people possibly away from checking something out. Yeah, I was missing 2 achievements on this, that's why I've been kind of looking up while I've been doing this. 64 out of 66. Oh, those extra achievements drive me nuts. I was so far along through them. But this game actually feels pretty tense. I mean, it's not super competitive, but it definitely has an element of, like, it could be competitive if you take it seriously. It's perfect for the younger audience, even if, you know, the other ones are there too. I think Garden Warfare 2 actually builds on this one very, very well. And again, Battle for Neighborville is a fun experience too. But there's something about this original one that I still really quite enjoy and have a lot of fun with. I think it's just a very well done time. Did we knock down the cactus? The poor pea shooter. This is funny. See the kind of map results here. Cactus Canyon. Simpler times, wacky times, great times. Definitely a lot of fun in this one. And I think we're gonna have to jump into another match here because we need to get a little bit of extra time going on. But as you can see, high rank, and then there's a sticker shop. You earn the sticker points, and then you can buy the sticker packs and get stuff. Legends of the Lawn Pack. I think that's what I was saving up for. I can't remember what I kind of worked towards. Cool stats. Bad KD ratio, but yeah, let's jump into the next round here. Alright, we jumped into another match, and now we're playing as the plants. It's kind of cool to be able to show off both sides of the equation. So I actually kind of prefer the plants. I really like the pea shooter here. I've got my funky glasses. Although I do definitely adore the sunflower because it has like the most derpy, weird personality. It's like they're not even in a war. They're just like out on their own doing their own thing. I think my sunflower has like a wizard hat on too, which is just absolutely comical. But yeah, this game's got some fun quirks to it. And of course, absolute mayhem on the battlefield, which is kind of wild. Look at all the zombies coming through. Like, they definitely made the maps different in this one compared to the later ones. At least I think so. There was definitely a different sort of character to it, style-wise. Trying to, like... Yeah, change character. I want to show off the sunflower. Yeah, I've got the sunflower with the wizard hat. He's just, like, the smiliest, dopiest thing ever. And, yeah, it's just absolutely delightful to see this. And I got the I-beam. What does the I-beam do? Can't quite remember. So many dynamics to this. I usually just play as the pea shooter and the zombie. Oh yeah, it's the beaming ray of death. Yeah, the sunflower can focus the light rays and just burn people. Oh, that's not good. Getting rocketed. But yeah, the sunflower is kind of a bit of an awesome character. Definitely one of my favorites. It's so nice to be back on this game because I didn't think I would ever be, you know, playing it again. It definitely wasn't on my, like, list of specific games to do review-wise, right? Like, it was something to be like, okay, maybe we'll get to it at some point, but yeah, no, this is the perfect excuse with this frame rate boost to go back and play it, and it feels so wonderful. Like, I know visually it might not, like, look like something that just came out, but frame rate-wise, it feels like something that just came out. Keeping in mind that this game technically has now one of the highest frame rates in, you know, like, console gaming. There's very few titles that are running at 120 at this point. Maybe like probably under, like, what, around 30 or so that run at 120 at this point. So, yeah, I mean, for such an old game, it's wild that it technically has, like, a super high frame rate in comparison to other games. But such a treat to continue to go back and play the Plants vs. Zombies franchise. I know it's not necessarily going to be everyone's favorite sort of thing, but if you like Battlefield, you might actually really love what this franchise has to offer. Because it does feel exactly like that, but it's just comical. You know, obviously Battlefield's very serious and usually pretty intense, but this one's just kind of wacky, quirky, bizarre fun, and just over-the-top action. And yet again, perfect for the younger audience. So if you got a young one out there that wants to be like a shooter type game, this one is totally perfect because it's not really violent or anything. It's just silly. Absolutely silly. I mean, like, the kid just got eaten by a plant thing and stuff. And remember, they're never dead. They're like vanquished or something. There's a different terminology, which is funny for it, but yeah, it's just sort of a quirky, over-the-top game. That's what it is. And you know what? Again, like I said earlier, it actually looks pretty clean for the resolution target. Like, there's some little spots where it's not perfect, but yeah, out of the batches I've seen of like older style games, it actually looks pretty smooth. Kind of surprised by that. And I think the HDR helps a little bit too, the auto HDR effect. It's so nice to have this. Like, it's great that these older backwards compatible titles are getting benefits. Like, not even ones that are that old technically, right? Because it's just the last gen title at this point, but it's already shaping up to be better than it ever was. Who wants to die now? Get back here, doctor. And if you've played the later ones and you've never played this one, you're probably going to be a bit surprised by the dynamics and the changes of like the combat and stuff. Because it is a different game too, right? The more like basic abilities, more of a regular set game, and they were just testing things out until this one kind of blew up a bit at the time and spawned some entries and follow-ups. Yeah, just wild. Garden Warfare. Yeah, I'd probably be shocked at how many hours I got put in this one early on. It's like I said, you know, you get to a new generation, there wasn't any backwards compatibility back then, so you only had like you know, very limited roster of things. I wasn't even like reviewing back then, I don't think, or really not doing much reviewing. So I wasn't getting titles like I do now, and it was definitely gave me a lot of gameplay action to kind of enjoy. Always doing the cover system with that. Yeah, good thing the pea shooter's got great splash damage abilities. Zombot destroyed. There's not really much people to shoot right now. Anybody else want to get up in here so I can shoot them with the Gatling cannon? That thing was always hard to hit. Oh, he got me good. That's a funky looking engineer guy. Usually they don't look like that. But again, costumes and stuff. Like what my guy's got, like, I think some sort of like 3D glasses on or something. Just a little bit of a comical effect. Well, this is the ice pea shooter. I always went with the classic pea shooter. It was more my thing. Oh, not the sunflower. You monsters. I'm gonna give a revival here because it's all about teamwork, right? Oh, they self-respawned? Really? I was saving their life. Just slightly heard about that. We gotta defend the post, guys. Don't let them get it. Only got a minute and a half to defend here. We don't wanna hold the line on these guys. The other pea shooter has fallen. I think we got the chopper over. The choppers always felt like so overpowered. They were respawned, or well, revived. Uh-oh. Well, we lost that. That sucks. Then we gotta move back to another area. Yeah, it's got a really charming style to it. Such a delightful time. Good music, fun times to be had as you're fighting the zombies or fighting the plants as the zombies. The concept, it just works. It just makes for a good time. And I hope you enjoyed this, like, look at this one. Oh, was that like the Terminator type one with the ice face? That was always entertaining. But yeah, pretty cool game. Pretty nice. Little subtle things too that help make the environment feel really large and full of depth. That's definitely for sure.